Welcome to the program, everybody. Tyrone Bowman live on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Election day in America. Many offices are up for political grabs, and we'll find out as the day goes on exactly who the winners and the losers are. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to another one of our subscribers for sending in a donation for project that we're working on, a new studio for Tyrone Bowman Live. Actually, it's our first studio. We're working on getting it built, and the money's coming in slowly but surely. So I want to thank our subscribers, who I will name once all this is said and done, if they wish me to name them. So you know who you are. You're probably watching already. Thank you for your contribution. You can be assured it went directly to the graphic designer. So if you'd like to help us, in building the studio for Tyrone Bowman Live, simply send your donation $1. That's all I'm asking for, to Tyrone Bowman at $PIEXCL number 4. Today in profile, I'm going to talk about a pioneering broadcast journalist who was one of a kind during the course of his broadcasting career, and a first-class gentleman in everything that he did. Gone but not forgotten. I want to talk about the pioneer broadcast journalist Edward Rudolph Bradley Jr., one of the first black men who worked for CBS News. So let's deal with him today. Here is a photograph of Ed Bradley. This is probably toward the end of his career, most likely. If you go back in the archives of 60 Minutes, you'll see him covering some of the greatest stories that happened in America. All right, let's talk about this distinguished gentleman, gone but never forgotten, Edward Bradley. So who is Ed Bradley? And what were his contributions to the broadcasting industry as a whole? Edward Rudolph Bradley Jr. was born on 22nd of June, or June 22nd, 1941. Transition into eternity, November 9th of 2006. And he was a pioneering African-American broadcast journalist and news anchor, was best known for reporting with 60 Minutes and CBS News. The one thing I always liked about Ed Bradley is that he did it with class. He did it with style. He did it with dignity. He was a real professional in everything that he did. So let's go into his background and find out how it all started. After graduating from Cheyney State College, now known as Cheyney University, Bradley became a teacher and part-time radio disc jockey and reporter in Philadelphia, where his first major story was covering the 1964 Philadelphia race riot, which was a horrible time in Philadelphia. He moved to New York City in 1967 and worked for WCBS as a radio news reporter. 4 years later, Bradley moved to Paris, France, where he covered the Paris Peace Accords as a stringer for CBS News. In 1972, he transferred to Vietnam and covered the Vietnam War and the Cambodian Civil War, coverage for which he won an Alfred I. DuPont and George Polk Awards. Bradley moved to Washington, D.C. following the wars and covered Jimmy Carter's first presidential campaign. He became CBS News, News's first African-American White House correspondent, holding the position from 1976 to 1978. During this time, Bradley also anchored the Sunday night broadcast of the CBS Evening News, a position he held until 1981. In 1981, Bradley joined 60 Minutes while working for CBS News and 60 Minutes. He reported on approximately 500 stories. That's a lot of time and effort and dedication covering 500 stories and won numerous Peabody and Emmy Awards for his work. Let me hit you to something, ladies and gentlemen, because many times people like to take things lightly. It was no small feat for a black brother during his time to break into the broadcast business and to land a job with CBS News in 60 Minutes after having paid his dues. Oftentimes, individuals, they want success, they want prosperity, they want everything that life can afford, but are they willing to do the work and everything that it takes to ascend? So he covered a wide range of topics, including the rescue of Vietnamese refugees, segregation in the United States, the AIDS epidemic in Africa, and sexual abuse within the Catholic Church. Sadly, Bradley died in 2006 of leukemia. So Ed Rudolph Bradley Jr. was born on June 22nd, 1941 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, my hometown, and I'm proud of it. I don't care what they say about Philadelphia. Philadelphia is still one of the best places on the planet. His parents divorced when he was young, and he was raised in a poor household by his mother, Gladys Gaston Bradley, and spent summers with his father, Edward Sr., in Detroit. Bradley attended high school at Mount St. Charles Academy in Rhode Island and St. Thomas More Catholic Boys School in Philadelphia, graduating from the latter in 1959. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in education from Cheyney State College, now Cheyney University. In 1964, while at Cheyney State, Bradley played offensive tackle for the school's football team. Thank you and bless you right back. Ed Bradley. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, go into the CBS archives for yourself. Take the time to do the research and do the homework. Look at his body of work that was left behind as a legacy and a testament to the thoroughness, professionalism that he operated with. And during that time, it was very rare and unheard of to see any type of black person, let alone a male, in a top position doing the evening news and working for CBS 60 Minutes at the same time. I know some of you don't like to hear that, but truth has to be told, because when biographies and autobiographies are written, you have to tell the truth. There's no whitewashing history. So let's talk about his career from 1964 to 1971. Ed Bradley began his career as a math teacher in Philadelphia in 1964. Can you imagine how much they were paying him back then to be a math teacher? Teachers don't make that much money now. So imagine what they were paying him back then. While working as a teacher, he also worked at WDAS as a disc jockey, as they were called in those days. You all remember those days and times. While working for WDAS, Bradley covered the 1964 Philadelphia race riot and interviewed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Those experiences led him to pursue a career as a journalist. While Bradley later saying, quote, "I knew that God put me on this earth to be on the radio," and, quote, "Find your purpose, fulfill your destiny, don't miss it." Each and every one of us was up. We all have a destiny and a purpose for being on this planet that we have to fulfill. I'm doing mine. Please find yours. All right, now check this out. So Bradley acknowledged that the divine one, the deity, put him on this earth to be on the radio. Bradley moved to New York City in 1967, working for WCBS. While there, Bradley found he was primarily assigned stories most relevant to, Wikipedia says, African Americans. I would put it the way it is, to black listeners. That's what he was hired for. You know, we want you to do the black thing. So we'll give you all the black stories. thinking they were probably hurting him. Well, guess what? They were blessing him at the same time. After confronting his editor about those assignments, Bradley received assignments on a broader array of topics. Bradley left WCBS in 1971 because they wanted to keep him right there in that position and didn't want him to go any further. I know many broadcasters who are still alive that are pioneering broadcasters. I'm not going to call their names. I've listened to them. They told me their stories and how they were disrespected in the industry and how much little money they actually made. It's just like with sports, you know, when you cover the likes of Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you find out exactly what these trailblazers went through. That's in basketball, football, baseball, etc. They have a story that must be told. Just like I got on somebody's case years ago, they didn't like the conversation I was having. I said, I really don't care. You remember the movie Philadelphia? Yes, it starred Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, filmed right in Philadelphia. And I said, isn't it ironic that Hank got major press, was all over the media. Every time he turned around, they didn't even want to mention Denzel Washington's name. People didn't even know he was in Philadelphia working on the movie until it was almost over. You darn right I had a lot to say about it. What? I know some of y'all don't like this kind of talk, but it's a reality. I don't like a lot of stuff that's going on in the nation, but it's happening. I don't like the fact that people are having a hard time surviving and living and trying to make ends meet. So Bradley moved to Paris, France in 1971. Let me get back to my feed. Guess he said, the heck with America, I'm out of here. So he moved to Paris in 1961. And believe it or not, he was fluent in French. Who would have thought it, or quote unquote thunk it? He was fluent in French. And while there was hired by CBS News as a stringer. I guess they had no choice. Because the man spoke fluent French, they need somebody to translate. He transferred to Saigon in 1972 to report on the Vietnam War and Cambodian Civil War, as well as reporting on the Paris Peace Accords. While in Cambodia, Bradley was wounded by a mortar round. Some assignments can be very, very dangerous. He was transferred to CBS's Washington Bureau in 1974, returning to Asia the following year to continue reporting on both wars. Bradley was one of the last American journalists to be evacuated in 1975 during the fall of Saigon. He was awarded, as I said earlier, the Alfred I. DuPont and Georgia Polk Awards for his coverage in Vietnam and Cambodia. Here's a photo of a young Ed Bradley speaking with then President Jimmy Carter in the Oval Office because he interviewed him. That was his classic style, always dressed very nicely, laid back, cool, and thorough. So let's move on here. We're talking about his education, his career. In 1976, Bradley was assigned to cover Jimmy Carter's presidential campaign, as well as the Republican and Democratic national conventions covering them until 1996. Following Carter's victory, Bradley became CBS's first black White House correspondent, a position he held from 1976 to 1978. Bradley disliked the position as it tied him to the movements of the president. Wow, that could be somewhat disconcerting at the same time because you're dealing with security all the time and you're always inconvenienced and you got to go through security. Also in 1976, Bradley began anchoring the Sunday night broadcasts of the CBS Evening News, holding the post until 1981. In 1978, he became one of the principal correspondents for the documentary program CBS Reports, also leaving in 1981. Bradley won the first of 20 news and documentary Emmy Awards in his career for his 1979 documentary, quote, The Boat People, end quote, reporting on Vietnamese refugees escaping the country via boat or ship at one point, wading in the water to assist in the rescue of the refugees. The Boat People also earned Bradley an Edward Murrow Award. If you know anything about Edward Murrow, he was the standard bearer, the interviewer, the broadcaster, the man at that time. A DuPont citation and a commendation from the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. The same year, another Bradley documentary, quote, Blacks in America, with all deliberate speed, end quote. It aired. The documentary detailed segregation in the United States and how the treatment of Black people in the U.S. had changed since Brown versus Board of Education. The 2-hour program also won the DuPont and Emmy Awards. Following Dan Rather's move to the CBS Evening News, Bradley joined the news magazine program 60 Minutes. According to producer Don Hewitt, Bradley's calm, cool, and collected, quote, close quote, reporting style was the right fit for the program. His interview style has drawn comparisons to television detective Columbo and been described as, quote, disarming, end quote, confident, end quote, and, quote, streetwise, end quote. If you have street cred and you got street knowledge and street wisdom, you can get stories that nobody else can get. He was noted for his ability to get interview subjects to divulge information on camera with his body language. In his first decade on 60 Minutes, Bradley reported numerous high-profile stories on a variety of topics, including with Lena Horne. Convicted criminal and author Jack Henry Abbott, and on schizophrenia, he won Emmys for all 3 stories. You know, Lena Horne, I remember Ed Bradley saying in one of the broadcasts when he was interviewed, he said that was his most enjoyable and memorable and favorite interview that he ever conducted. In 1986, Bradley interviewed singer Liza Minnelli and expressed interest in wearing an earring. Minnelli gave him a diamond stud after the interview. You know, Liza Minnelli, the daughter of the great Judy Garland. So after the interview, she gave him a diamond stud, which Bradley began wearing on air. Wow. He was the first male reporter to consistently wear an earring on air, challenging the notions of journalistic propriety, according to Rob Report, writer of Christopher Fraser. He became known for bucking fashion trends for newscasters. His iconic style included an array of patterns, a short beard, and the earring worn in his left ear. My brother, Mike Wallace, said after Bradley's death that he thought Bradley's decision to wear an earring inspired others to do the same. Bradley repeatedly turned down offers to anchor the CBS Evening News in the late 1980s, preferring instead to continue working on 60 Minutes. His reporting in the 1990s included such topics as Chinese forced labor camps, Russian military installations, and the effects of nuclear weapons testing near Kazan, Kakistan, my bad, Kakistan. He also profiled numerous people, including Thomas Quassoff, Muhammad Ali, and Mike Tyson. He won a series of awards for his reporting that decade, including Emmys, DuPont citations, and a Peabody Award. Bradley also anchored CBS's Street Stories from 1992 to 1993. In 1995, he was awarded the grand prize Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award for the CBS Reports documentary, quote, In the Killing Fields of America, end quote, which became a movie. Throughout the 2000s and to his death in 2006, Bradley continued to cover a variety of topics, including the AIDS epidemic in Africa, sexual abuse within the Catholic Church, and the 1995 murder of Emmett Till. And the 1955 murder of Emmett Till. He also interviewed high-profile people such as Bob Dylan. Hey, y'all, listen to me. If you haven't seen that interview with Bob Dylan, it is one of the most compelling, intriguing interviews I've ever seen in my life. Go look up 60 Minutes interview with Ed Bradley and Bob Dylan. Check that one out. So that is a interview. It's unforgettable. He also interviewed Neil Armstrong and conducted the only television interview with Timothy McVeigh. You know who Timothy McVeigh was? He was executed for his planning of the Oklahoma bombings that occurred. Bradley reported approximately 500 stories for 60 Minutes over his 25-year tenure with the program, more than any other correspondent over the same time period. In 2005, Bradley was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Association of Black Journalists. Bradley's reporting was not without criticism. Washington Post columnist Brock Yates questioned the completeness of Bradley's 1986 report on acceleration systems failures with the Audi 5000 sedan, and why Audi engineers reportedly could not reproduce the program. Who cares? Straight up, who cares if he was criticized? Criticism goes with the territory. You know, people just have to find something that becomes a smirch on somebody's unblemished record to try to taint it, to doubt the authenticity of an authentic journalist and correspondent, news anchor and reporter on the level of Ed Bradley. You're going to always have your critics in life, ladies and gentlemen, who tell you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't look good enough, and all this other kind of stuff that does not matter. If you know you have what it takes to succeed, succeed. If you know you have what it takes to excel, excel. No one can tell me that I don't have what it takes to do what I'm doing. They can forget that. My mother instilled confidence in me a long, long, long time ago. And it is unshakable. And you can't break the kid. So whatever your position is, or vocation, or calling, is in life, do it with confidence. You don't have to be egocentric about it, but do it with confidence. Self-confidence in yourself is more important than somebody trying to put it in you. So, criticism from Brock Yates. Who cares, Brock? I certainly don't. In 1989, Bradley reported on democide, a chemical used on apples, as well as 7 pesticides used on the fruit, which is true. How do you think they preserve it? His report called democide a carcinogen particularly dangerous to children and sparked a national panic. Scientists with the American Society of Toxicology noted a lack of scientific evidence in Bradley's report, and that the United States Environmental Protection Agency and Food and Drug Alcohol Administration issued a joint statement 18 days later after Bradley's story aired declaring apples safe to eat. No one didn't say they were safe to eat, they weren't safe to eat, but they still put pesticides on foods in order to preserve them. What do you think they did during the days before refrigeration came? How do you think they preserved food? With salt? You used to have to go and get blocks of ice to put over the food because toxicity was in meats. And in order to kill it, you put salt in it to bring out the poison. Everything that they tell you is organic is not organic. Be careful about going to a lot of these stores that swear up and down that everything they sell is organic. I've been to several of them, and I found a whole bunch of generic stuff inside the stores. Then when I questioned them on it, they go, I don't know what to say. We normally don't have that labs. I'll get out of here. Y'all sell generic stuff in organic stores all the time. Stop playing. So, the Food and Drug Administration issued a joint statement in 18 days saying apples were safe to eat. If I go and get fruit, I make sure I cut off all the skin. I will not eat it. A trade group of apple growers from Washington sued 60 Minutes after the story aired, but their claims were dismissed after the United States Supreme Court upheld an appeals court ruling that the association failed to disprove Bradley's story. Yeah, those farmers down in the South were upset. Why? Because they thought nobody was going to buy their apples. They were upset because the brother reported the truth. They didn't like it. They couldn't sue him, so they sued 60 Minutes. Why? To try to recoup for what they thought would be apparent losses. His coverage of Kathleen Wiley, who accused Bill Clinton of sexual misconduct in the 1990s, drew criticism for not pushing Wiley in his interview, giving her a disproportionate amount of airtime and leaving out important information from Clinton's attorney, Robert Bennett. Of course, that's how the story was going to go, because they didn't want Clinton to become president. So they made sure that Bradley did not overdo it. Don't press her. Just believe whatever she says without any substantiated facts. So he did the interview. But Clinton's attorney, Robert Bennett, should have had equal airtime to refute those alleged accusations back in the day. So if you don't like it, how would you like if somebody accused you of something? Just based upon their word, they haul you into a police station, arraign you, and start charging you up. The next thing you know, you're going before a judge, and he found you guilty based upon somebody's word without any scintilla of evidence whatsoever to the contrary. See, that's called point counterpoint. So the integrity of his December 2003 interview with Michael Jackson was also called into question after CBS refused to air a musical special unless Jackson discussed molestation charges with CBS News. Who were they to demand that Jackson discuss anything with them? And who cares if they didn't want to interview, because they wanted to degrade him. They wanted to smear him. They wanted to destroy Michael, and it was proven that Michael was never guilty of any of the things that they charged him with in the court of law, and they still did not want to accept the fact that he was found not guilty. You know, people, you have to be careful about accusing people of things and you know nothing about them or their lifestyles or the things that they do. Just because a reporter or journalist or broadcaster says something about someone, it doesn't necessarily make it truth. I call it lying news. Other people want to call it fake news. I call it lying news. Lying news is a rush to judgment. Lying news is prefabricated, unsubstantiated news. They can make it up on you, me, or anybody in an attempt for ratings, in an attempt to be the first one to cover the story. You got a lot of people on YouTube who do that. They bring forth lying news. The gossip people on YouTube. Those who like salacious videos and things of that nature, you know, while eating popcorn and drinking their favorite soda. They're quick to come with a story about somebody's life. They're quick to say, oh, I was the first to cover that, for clicks and baits. And throughout the entire time, they keep hollering, hit that Cash App, hit that Cash App, hit that Cash App. If you want me to continue with this story, I'll go over to my Patreon. I'll have the real story over there, because now you have to really pay. Be careful. Be careful with people who are quick to rush to judgment regarding somebody. Get all the facts first. You know, as an individual becoming a criminal defense attorney, I make sure I thoroughly research everything before I open my mouth to talk. And if I misspeak, if I misquote someone, I'm man enough to come back before this camera and apologize and get the story straight. That's why I like doing interviews on several occasions, because I want the individual to speak for themselves. You know, Jackson was paid an undisclosed sum for the special by CBS's entertainment division. Well, y'all had no choice but to pay him if you wanted to interview him. There's no brainer there. Edward Bradley was diagnosed with lymphatic leukemia in his later years, keeping the illness secret from many, including colleagues such as Mike Wallace. His health rapidly declined after contracting an infection, but Bradley continued to work, saying that he preferred to, quote, die, quote, with his boots on, end quote. Bradley filled 20 stories in his final year with 60 Minutes, conducting his last interviews with members of the Duke University lacrosse team accused of rape weeks before his death. That story right there was one of the most hideous stories I ever heard about. And it was all based on a lie. Did you hear what I said? These young white men who were stellar students and human beings were falsely accused of raping a black woman. I don't care if some of y'all don't like it. I'm still going to talk about it. They were falsely accused. Nifon, who was the district attorney, was up for re-election, and he promised the black community, if they re-elected him, that he would convict those Duke University lacrosse team players. Disgusting. She lied. She was never raped by them. Never. She was angry because they didn't want to be bothered with her at a party. And the sad thing about it was, the district attorney, Nifon, knew that there was no viable claim there, but he went with the story anyway. But since they came from wealthy families, their families each paid their attorneys $1 million to dig and dig and dig. And Nifon, finally, these young men were cleared of all these charges. Duke University had to pay them a large amount of money. And they surreptitiously left Duke University, and I don't blame them. And they went on to become attorneys, saying they would defend the causes of people who are being falsely accused. Nifon was disbarred. The ABA, the American Bar Association, disowned him. He's driven out of office because he had no business doing that. So listen up, my black brothers and sisters. We're not the only ones who get falsely accused of stuff in this world. A lot of white people get falsely accused of crimes that they never committed as well. And those young men did not deserve to have their lives destroyed and their educational careers destroyed and their reputations pulled in question by someone that was a prostitute. She was mad. She was upset. And the semen that they found inside her did not belong to those young men. You all have family members and friends of yours that have been accused of rape. And you didn't like it when somebody falsely accused them. You know how many innocent men are locked up in prison right now because of some lying prosecutor, some lying district attorney, some lying cops who framed them, set them up, got decades in prison. You hear the stories all the time of men. A man 40 years right now just came out of prison. And then they don't want to compensate them for what they've been through. They don't want to clear their records. So he interviewed him just weeks before his death. Edward Bradley died at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan on November 9, 2006. He was 65 years old. More than 2,000 people attended Bradley's funeral service at Riverside Church in New York. Among the attendees were the Reverend Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, musicians Jimmy Buffett and Wynton Marsalis, journalist Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite, Charlene Hunter Galt, and former U.S. President Bill Clinton. In April 2007, Bradley was honored with a jazz funeral mass and procession at St. Augustine Church during the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. So what is his legacy? What is the legacy and body of work that's left behind on record for Bradley? Marley Schaefer described the themes of Bradley's reporting as justice, justice served, and justice denied. Bradley was reporting on the AIDS epidemic in Africa, has been credited with convincing drug companies to donate and discount drugs to treat the disease. His reporting on psychiatric hospitals in the U.S. prompted federal investigations into the largest chains, and his reporting on the Duke lacrosse team has been credited with ensuring accused had a fair trial. Broadcast on October 15, 2006, the 60 Minutes edition that had Bradley's interview with the Duke lacrosse players had nearly 17 million viewers. It was the 9th most watched show that week and one of the highest rated episodes of the year. Bradley was seen as an inspiration for Black Americans, with columnist Clarence Page writing, quote, Mr. Bradley challenged the system. He worked hard and prepared himself. He opened himself to the world and dared the world to turn him away. He wanted to be a lot, and he succeeded. Thanks to him, the rest of us know that we can too. Close quote. Salim Mubaki wrote for The Progressive about Bradley's impact on black journalists, noting that Bradley, quote, proved blacks not only could do the job, but they could do it with panache, end quote. Matt Zoller, Cite, writing for Slate magazine, said Bradley forced audiences in the television news industry to, quote, accept him on his own terms, end quote, and that he, quote, annihilated, received wisdom about what it meant to be a professional journalist, a black man, and an American, end quote. Okay, I want to talk about his philanthropy and his honors. But I will say this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Retain your originality. Be who you are and don't let anybody change you from your authentic, genuine self. Don't compromise to appease industry. Don't compromise to appease the record business. Don't let somebody try to make you be what they want you to be based upon what they say you should be. In 1994, Bradley and the Radio Television News Directors Association Foundation started a scholarship program in his name for journalists of color, whatever the blank that means. It awards $10,000 annually. In 2007, he was inducted into the Broadcast Pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame, where he should be inducted into the National Journalist and Broadcasters Hall of Fame. And Bradley was named one of the 100 outstanding American journalists in the last 100 years in 2012 by faculty at Dordt University. In 2015, the Pennsylvania General Assembly renamed City Avenue in Philadelphia Ed Bradley Way. They need more than that for it, brother. And the mural of Bradley was completed in the city in 2018, and the historic marker was installed in 2021. So, Edward Bradley. He was fond of jazz and hosted Jazz at Lincoln Center on National Public Radio. He performed with Jimmy Buffett and the Neville Brothers and was referred to as the fifth Neville brother, quote unquote, by the group. He was an outdoorsman and often hiked or skied in his free time. Wow. That is awesome, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you enjoyed this profile of pioneer broadcaster and journalist, Ed Bradley. I'm going to take a break, and we'll be back with some more stories. Never surrender. Never quit.